Slacktail Squad, assemble.
All right, here's my countdown.
It's a podcast.
4, 3.
Why the hell?
Shut up!
By the way, I want to mention real quick, welcome to the podcast. You butchered the intro of the last podcast. You tried to overdub something or edit the intro. What happened?
Here's what happened. Thanks for interrupting me, Ronz, as I was about to start the podcast.
Okay, go ahead and officially start.
Thank you for fucking it up. This is the Slaptail Squad, and I'm the Beav Man coming to you from the Beaver Den, saying hello, members of Slaptail Nation, my own personal Slaptail Nation army. Thanks for coming to hang out with us. Shut up. We're the squad. The Slaptail Nation is my nation. Members of my Slaptail Nation army. Try to keep up, Ronz. But go ahead and ask your stupid question. Oh, you already asked your stupid question. Go ahead.
I did.
Oh, this is the Ronz asking stupid fucking questions. Go ahead.
Well, give me a stupid answer then. What happened?
This is why. The reason why is because, like what we just did now, is when I hit click, I started recording. I talked as soon as I hit record. Well, there's apparently a delay, so that cut me off. So I had to remove that and then dub in my intro. Now, do you understand?
Yeah, I guess I do.
You guess you do?
Yeah, I guess I do.
Stupid comments, stupid voice, the Ronz.
The Ronz, yeah. By the way, a shout out to...
This is the Ronz.
Shout out to Seymour Butts, by the way.
Oh, motherfuckers, do your fucking thing. When I say this is the Ronz and I pause, you're supposed to do what?
Acknowledge?
Yes, bye.
Hey.
There you go. Also with us today is a guest by the name of Isaac. He's joining us for this idiot podcast. This is all service members on this podcast. Go ahead and say hi there, Isaac.
Hi.
Hi.
How's everybody? Yeah.
Well, they can't answer us. Are you talking to the listening audience, or are you
I'm talking to you two?
Oh, we're fine. Thank you.
We're fine.
Thanks for asking. Thank you for asking. Ronz, go ahead. Say something stupid. Get us started.
Yeah, right. Well, first of all, I was going to go to a protest today, right? But
no, I don't know. There's drinking game. Go ahead, everybody. Take a drink every time the Ron says right. This is a drinking game that our listening audience plays, Isaac. Every time the Ron says right, somebody drinks. Okay. On that note, also,
I did read the comment by Seymour Butts, by the way. I thought that was awesome.
So you're promoting a listener. Is that what you're saying?
Well, they promoted us.
Oh, okay. Go ahead and explain yourself.
I don't have to explain anything. But anyway.
What was their comment?
What was the comment?
When I first started the podcast with... Oh,
fucking asshole! You fucking asshole! 3 minutes and 58 seconds into the podcast, and I'm gonna have to go back and fucking edit. And you know when you do that shit, I leave this part in. I just blot out my name with the gobble because you fuck it up every fucking time. Because it's a new thing. You know how many podcasts you've done so far, Ronz? With me? You've done over 20 podcasts so far.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, but so why do you keep fucking up? Why do you
I didn't screw up the last one, and you did.
Anyway, go ahead and on what you were saying there. Go ahead.
Anyway, I forgot what I was gonna effing say.
Well, let's introduce Isaac first, and then you can tell us your stupid story. Isaac, go ahead and just very briefly tell us something not too personal about yourself that we might find interesting. Go ahead.
Oh, jeez.
A lot of pressure. I know you probably thought you were going to have to talk on this podcast.
Nothing too personal. So, let's see. I'm 44. Grew up in Michigan. Was in the Air Force for 9 years.
Oh, where were you at?
Let the man speak. He's giving it. You let the man fucking speak. I said just give an introduction, and then you can ask questions. So you've already thrown him off.
No, that's good. That's all I was going to give anyway.
That's all you were giving. Okay.
Yeah.
Nothing too personal. Go ahead, Ronz. Ask your question.
Yeah, now you calm down. You take your Xanax today? So where were you stationed at?
I was started at Travis in California, went to Kunsan in Korea, Kirtland, New Mexico, and then Elmendorf, Alaska.
Wow.
Yep.
Started out at what is it? RAF Lakenheath. Wound up at Schusterberg, which was known as Camp New Amsterdam, and then Loring Air Force Base.
Where's that at? The last one?
Loring is up in northern Maine. I thought you couldn't get any colder, but apparently Alaska is.
More like boring.
Yeah, that's what they call it until you get up there, and then it grows on you. It really does.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the same thing with Alaska. I thought I was going to hate it, but it was pretty awesome.
So,
Now, Isaac, what did you do in the Air Force?
Security forces.
Was it something as prestigious as fueling?
I think more so than fueling.
Oh,
but,
you would argue perhaps more so. Is that correct?
Hey, fuelers.
So you were an S. What do they call them? SPs? What do they call them? SPs?
When I went in, it was security police, and then they changed it to security forces.
Okay, so when I was in, that's what they were called. They were called security police. And if I remember correctly, didn't you guys wear like little dark blue berets?
We did, yes.
A dark blue beret.
Yeah.
Berets, they may look sharp, but let me tell you, what a pain in the ass to wear, and hot.
Yeah, very hot, especially when you're in the desert.
Yeah, and really hot if you've got to do stupid things like, not stupid, I mean, it's prestigious and it's tradition, but like a division review, they do that, and then everybody's got this line across their forehead where their beret sits because there's no visor. That's always lots of fun. Lots of fun. So, what years were you in the Air Force then, Isaac?
I went in disregard. 93 and got out in 2002.
93 to 2002. Another young one, Ronz.
Yeah, another young one. That's the way it goes.
When were you in, Ron?
I was in from 85 till 93, 92, 93.
Right.
If I remember
So there was
correctly.
some overlap there, Ronz. We could have accidentally met each other. We had overlapping time in the military.
I had realized I went to a funeral and I was talking to a family member cousin I didn't know I had, and he was wearing a retired Air Force ring. I mentioned a base, right?
I don't know.
Or
Greg?
something. He goes, "Oh, you were in." And I told him my time frame and where I was at. And he was on the same continent, but in a different country, right? He was in
So
Germany.
you guys were like right next to each other on the same continent.
Yeah. Well, when you think about the Netherlands and where
I
it's
think about
located,
fish. I think about fish and
well, it's pretty, that's a central location. So you're about an hour away or 3 hours away from just about 5 or 6 countries.
what do they call those long
I
waterways?
think of windmills.
What do they call them?
Canals?
Yeah, there. I think about canals and
Windmills, wooden shoes.
wooden shoes,
Red
and
lights.
very, very tall white guys and white women. That's what I think of when I think of the Netherlands.
Oh, really?
One of the only field problems I ever did that I gained weight on.
Why did you gain weight there?
Because when we went to the Netherlands to do our training mission, they fed us. This was one of the only places we went where they fed us well. I mean, every breakfast they had hard bread, cheese, meats, spreadable cheese, spreadable butters. And so we ate a shitload. And then when we jumped in, I filled my rucksack with meats, breads, cheeses, and jumped in with it. I actually gained weight on the field. Usually, in general, I would lose anywhere from 10 to 15 pounds on a field problem. I actually gained weight on that one. Chocolate. They had chocolate in their DFAC.
Yeah.
Who knew? That's how the other forces live, I guess. One of them.
Well, the Dutch really
German base, not so good. German food, not great on a military base.
The Dutch really take care of the troops over there because they remember World War II vividly. So they took care of the Americans pretty good. They really did.
You're saying the Dutch that were 18 years old in 1992 remember World War II vividly. No,
I said I implied the people, not the 18 or 19-year-olds, but the older generation.
There's two things I can't stand.
What's that?
People who are intolerant of other people, and the Dutch.
Why can't? Whoa! Back up here. Why can't you stand the Dutch?
It's from a movie.
My friends are Dutch.
That's from that's one of the Austin Powers movies, dude.
I would say it's from
His
Austin Powers.
dad
but
says
that-
it. His dad says that.
Okay.
It's like there's two things I can't stand: people who are intolerant of other people, and the Dutch. That would make him intolerant.
I was gonna say
You
I
get
have
it?
friends
That would
who
make him
understand.
intolerant. Oh, I love the
Sorry.
Dutch. Let me tell you, we had this very good relationship with the Dutch Green Berets.
Mhm.
The Dutch Green Berets, they did a lot of we would do field problems with them. That's usually who they would send to do joint missions. And it might have felt like, I'm sure it didn't feel like that because they were cool, but they would send us, and usually not our special forces, because our special forces are doing other stuff. We were not like special forces, but so we got to do a lot of training missions with other countries' special forces. And we were very close to the Dutch guys. So every time that we got together, we would usually party with the Dutch guys. And inevitably, after drinking for several hours, almost always there would be a kind of almost fight. And being a little brown man surrounded by a bunch of giant white guys and, all kinds of different nationalities of the American forces being in long range surveillance, a lot of times I didn't usually get drunk. Everybody else was. This was kind of early on. So I didn't get drunk all the time. And I was like, man, we're about to get fucked up by some giant white dudes. These guys were so big. I'm not kidding you. We did this mission in the Netherlands. These guys were so big that we were in this wood line and we saw some guys walking across this open area. And from far away, we were looking at them. I'm like, what are those little things on their back? It looked like they had these tiny little things on their back. And as they got closer and closer, I realized that it was their rucksacks that are actually pretty good sized. But because the Dutch guys are so big, it looked like they had these tiny little things on their back. And my team leader's like 6'2", I think.
Mhm.
And they walked up to us and he had to look up at them. And of course, me being like 5'9", I'm like, God damn, these guys are fucking big. Hot chicks, though. Some hot chicks.
When I lived over there, I didn't see anybody too tall or too small, right? They were just average size.
Mm-hmm.
That
Well,
was just me.
they might not have been average size, but because you were huffing so much fuel, one never knows what was happening.
Right.
Now, if you could, Ronz,
Yes.
this is what I'd like you to do. In your own words, or the actual definition, if you want to look it up or have time to do this, I'm going to give you a little assignment. I want you to look up your job description, or in your own words, say it. Isaac, I'm going to have you do the same thing. So your job description.
You're still on that subject, aren't you?
Now,
You're just
listen,
still on
man.
that
Let me
damn
first of all
subject.
let me do my thing, okay? I will do mine first while you guys have time to do that. How's that? Is that fair?
Sure.
Okay, so I'm going to do mine. Now, my job, let me first say this, and I've said this a bunch of times. I was not a badass by any means. If any of the listening audiences that were in the Army ever want to reach out to us who were, Ranger Battalion guys or Special Forces or, God forbid, the king, the god shit of all, if a Delta Force guy ever wants to reach out to us, please do so we can pick your brain and make fun and have a good time. But I was an airborne infantryman, and I wasn't a badass as an airborne infantryman. I'd say I was pretty average, normal guy. I don't usually toot my own horn or anything because I wasn't. But I am going to read just the description of. I'm going to read the description of the infantry, basically, the airborne infantry a little bit more specifically, and then a little bit more about one of the jobs that I did as my first duty station that was kind of fun. The mission of the infantry, which is what I was, is to close with the enemy by means of fire and maneuver in order to destroy or capture him or to repel his assault with fire, close combat, and counterattack. Sounds like a pretty Nancy type of job.
I think
You know
so.
what I mean? You think so?
No, not really.
Okay. Incidentally, the infantry is the oldest branch of the U.S. Army. The mission of the 82nd Airborne Division, which is the key airborne division that I was in for several years, is to, within 18 hours of notification, strategically deploy, conduct forcible entry parachute assault, and secure key objectives for follow-on military operations in support of U.S. national interests. That's the division as in a general. And then you insert the little part at the end as the infantry, and that would be my job that I did. Not very badass. Just kind of, just one of those things.
You did your part.
I did my part. I know it was a small part. And then my first job, just to give you a little bit of also of how I was kind of slacking and not doing super key mission at all, as a long-range surveillance member of a long-range surveillance unit and team. Classic long-range surveillance unit employment is to infiltrate deep behind enemy lines into enemy territory, construct a hide site, and provide continuous surveillance, special reconnaissance of an intelligence target of key interest. So, get inserted behind enemy lines with a team, conduct hide site activities, surveillance, reconnaissance, and try to hopefully make it back home on the other side, on your side of the enemy lines. Also, pretty Nancy job that I had, let me tell you. All right. That gives you plenty of time now for you guys to talk about your jobs. Who would like to go first?
Well, we'll turn it over to Isaac. I mean, you're our guest. Why don't you go first, and we won't overtalk you too much.
Sure. All right. So I am going to read from the Air Force job description thing here. It says,
that was a wise choice, Isaac.
Security forces leads, manages, supervises, and performs force protection duties, including use of deadly force, to protect personnel and resources. Protects nuclear and conventional weapon systems and other resources. Performs air-based defense functions, contributing to the force protection mission. So
sounds like a pretty pussy job, Isaac.
Hey, by Air Force standards, we were, the infantry for the whole Air Force, man. So we'd deploy, about the only time I felt did military stuff was when we were overseas, You'd be out patrolling, you'd be out doing convoys and, the usual Army stuff, I guess, then. But back at your air base, when you were home stateside, I mean, it was 9 to 5, show up, check in, drive a police car around for a little while and go home. So, yeah. When I was overseas too, if you were tapped, you also did guard duty too. They issued you, if you were over in Europe or wherever, they issued you, to fill in those gaps where they needed personnel. I mean, I knew guys that were in my section that got tapped to be guards. So basically, everybody covered everybody else, that area. So that was pretty cool. So,
to you, Ronz.
Oh, me.
Now, let me warn you ahead of time, Isaac.
Yep.
When the Ronz reads this, you might look back at your military career and feel like you wasted your
You are so riding my ass on
didn't
this.
achieve enough. Now you're about to hear a description of what you should have done.
Why are you riding my ass on this? I thought, you know what? I wasn't going to bust your ass on any of this because you were a badass. We both admit that because of your injury and everything. I said, you know what? I said, you're right. I busted your ass about the test scores. I was busting your ass about everything else that you did. And you kind of put me in my place by saying, you know what? It is what it is. However, we all work together as a cohesive unit, every branch together, right? I know that we have our little rivalries, military rivalries and everything, but when the chips are down, everybody supports everybody else. I mean, that's the way it has to be. And I came to the realization that your job was no more important than Isaac's, or mine was no more important than yours, right? Because you couldn't function without all of us working together. And I took a serious look at that. And I'm like, okay, you know what? Just for the sake of argument, I'm just not going to mention this anymore. I'm just going to let this go. And what the fuck do? You just slam it right back at me like a 5-year-old. Like,
well, I don't want you to let it go. Let me apologize for the last podcast then. How about this? Let me say this, that on the last podcast, and I'm going to fuck with Isaac also. On the last podcast, I made some statements that it was a little bit of a narrow view, so I'm not going to retract it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to further support the statement. And I really wish that my friend would have been able to be on this podcast today. But he was probably exhausted because he's driving all week and he's got time, doesn't get home until the weekends, and probably is a little bit exhausted. which but hopefully we can get him on the podcast. I really wanted him on the podcast because he's a Marine. He retired as a Marine, and I would have liked to also hear his perspective. But I said a rather narrow statement that I'm going to clarify today. What I said was, honestly, that all the branches of the military, their true mission, really, when you break it down, is to support the infantry, because the infantry are the war fighters. They're the ones who go in and kill everybody. So whether you're in the Navy, unless you're actively engaged in naval battles with a Navy of the opposing forces, which last time I checked, we haven't really engaged with any naval forces that are of any significance against us since, I'm going to say, World War II. Yeah. Unless you count the Cuban Missile Crisis. So what is Navy doing? Well, they've got boats that support ground tactics or that support air tactics, right? So my view might have been a little bit narrow. Let me now expand that view out to say this. I will say this instead, that the job of the support staff is to support the warfighters. So does a jet pilot necessarily conduct his operations in order to support infantry? Not necessarily. I mean, technically, if they're fighter pilots, they're fighting other jets, right? Isn't that what they do? That's what they're supposed to do. Again, what Air Force are we fighting against that has
What about the A-10s that are tank busters?
I'm getting to it. They are not. They don't fight other jets. That's what I'm getting to. Fighter pilots fight against what? Other jets, or they drop bomb, or they hit select targets, right? Okay. So are they necessarily in support of the infantry? Kind of, yes, but they also have their own mission that they're doing. So in a perfect battle, let's say we were battling against a military with the same might as ours, then their job would be a little bit different, because you're going to imagine them like Top Gun, except that would be,
that'd be Navy.
That'd be Navy, but still fighter pilot. Now, again, when you're talking about, you're going to bring up the A-10, I totally agree. I was going to bring those up also. Their primary job is what? Tank killers. Primary job, tank killers.
Ground support, tank killers, yeah.
If you're killing tanks, who are you in support of? You're really supporting the ground fighters, because they don't want to have to deal with tanks unless they've got their own tanks that are going to fight for them, which, of course, they're going to have that too. Now, when you talk about that, and so like I said, so if you're talking in the grand scheme of things, all the support troops are supporting the war fighters. So whether that's the Marines on the ground, whether that's the fighter pilots, the tank killers, the tanks, all those things, you're still supporting the war fighters. But in my narrow view, I said everybody's really supporting the infantry. I still stick by that. Now I'm going to fuck with Isaac, who just compared himself to the fucking infantry. That's a bunch of bullshit. That ain't even accurate. You need to go see what the infantry actually does before you compare yourself.
Okay. I saw what they did.
Now I'm okay. Go ahead.
I saw videos of it.
Now, speaking of videos.
That makes you qualified, Isaac. You saw videos. You're qualified for it. You go, man.
Speaking of videos.
And I don't know. I kind of disagree with you here on this one, because we pretty much didn't even need infantry for the Iraq War. I mean, by the time the Air Force was done, you guys walked across into Iraq, and it was over within, 100 days?
That's true. But those military operations were successful because we were fighting a far inferior force that was starving. But again, those operations, that's how it works. Whenever you're in a battle in the first place, it depends on what type of train or what type of mission it is. For example, we already had a shitload of troops in the Middle East before the quote war ever started. So missions of something like, we had the 82nd was already there. The 82nd Airborne Division had plenty of troops already there. So if they needed to, they weren't going to do an airborne operation into the desert, because they were already there. What would have been the point? Let's go load up and then drop everybody in when they're already on the ground. Yeah, a lot of my friends who are a couple of years older than me, who were in Iraq, they got bussed. Well, they got bussed in by charter buses. So some of them didn't even have to take, they didn't even have to take, deuce and a halfs or 5 tons or whatever. But you can see why that's important. Well, exactly what Isaac is talking about. That area was prepped first. That's what you do.
There's a lot we don't know that happened behind the scenes with all forces involved. And I was discussing this with my wife. who's Air Force too, is that there's a lot of things that we didn't get to see behind the scenes, especially when I was in, we did Operation El Dorado Canyon.
Pretty sure
right?
CNN saw a bunch of shit they weren't supposed to see, but
Yeah. Speaking of that, I remember when CNN was there. How the hell did they land first before our troops? What
they're
the fuck
already there,
was that
man.
all
They
about?
have operatives there already.
Did you notice that when that entire shitstorm kicked off? CNN was right there before our troops were there. I mean, they were on the
because
beach.
we have reporters. Those networks have reporters in every country.
Yeah.
Or not every country, but you know what I mean. They
Yeah, I
can
know
get
you
there quickly, and they get their own intel. Somebody tells them shit. What was it? Was it the Iraq War where the CNN filmed the SEALs coming out of the water?
Yeah, I think that's what I was referring to.
Like, what the fuck, man?
That was so hilarious.
I don't remember that. So they were there as the SEALs came in.
Yeah. They were on the beach with a camera crew, if I remember correctly. And
well, yes,
awesome.
in an ideal situation, depending on what type of invasion you're planning, depending on the grand scale, and depending on what size of the force that you're fighting, I'll give you an example. Training mission wise, this is what you do for training missions. Training missions.
Bring a lot of beer.
No.
Yes.
No. You may be Air Force, but not us. Training missions, you get locked down. In other words, you get called by an alert. You got to be in within, basically, it's usually 2 hours. You got all of your stuff, and you simulate going to war. You do all this war planning. You're off and off the ground. You have to be at the target within 18 hours of the time that you're alerted. Now, if you have an objective to hit, everybody has different objectives to hit. Now, you might get support from the Air Force. You might get support from, generally it's the Air Force. It's usually not the Navy from ground operations, depending on where, obviously, your location to water. But they're going to coordinate for, obviously, transportation. And if there's prep, you might get gunships to prep a target. You might not. You might get forces on the ground to prep a target. It depends. It depends on the target you're hitting. But in general, most of the time, a lot of times, before you do an airborne insertion to a target, you probably will get some air support. Whether they're strafing the area. I mean, I've done missions before where, Puff comes in and strafes the area, stuff like that. So yeah, what you're trying to do is they're trying to cause.
Who Puff is.
Well, why don't you explain it? You were a fueler. You've had to see Puff.
Yeah, I did.
I actually flew on them.
Sweet. Well, Isaac, why don't you describe it? Because our fueler doesn't know anything about it, apparently. What is Puff? What is Puff for the listening audience?
Puff is a C-130 that is armed with a 105 millimeter howitzer cannon, a 44 millimeter Gatling gun, a 20 millimeter cannon, and I believe a 50 cal or 250 cals. But they are definitely infantry support aircraft, and that is their whole mission.
Support completely.
And it sounds fucking cool.
Oh yeah, they're awesome. And in '99, we got deployed to Italy to support the army for the Bosnian stuff that was going on, and we would fly in the Puffs across the Black Sea there, and then they'd go in and fuck some stuff up, and then fly back. So those things are pretty badass, man.
Yeah, so listeners, if you want, check out a video of I'll Puff the Magic Dragon, if you want to call it that. C-130, which is
C-130 gunship.
Plane.
Yep.
Gunship. Watch a night mission. That's what you want.
Yeah, my kids and I watch them on YouTube all the time. Yep.
So there you go. So they come in, they strafe the area. Either we're jumping in right after that or something like that, and we might get support on the ground. So it depends. If you're an infantry that walks, that gets trucked in, or that's mechanized, that comes in with mechanized vehicles, you're hitting a vehicle with tanks or artillery's coming in first. Or if you're already on the ground, you already jumped in, you have to walk to an objective. For us, a lot of times, artillery was shooting over our heads, and artillery would hit the target, and then we go in. That's what you do. You try to destroy that target, or you try to fuck up as much of that target as you can, or get them disoriented while the infantry goes in and fights them in close quarter combat. And while you've got gun teams off to the side shooting at the target too while you're coming in. Yep. So yeah, it's not just like you go in with no prep. That's in an ideal military, that's what they're doing. They're prepping that area for us to go in. Can't always do that in the city, obviously, because you're trying to avoid fucking up people who don't need to get fucked up. But yeah, big target wise. What I'm saying is, yeah, obviously, yes, we do need each other. It's nice to have that. But everybody is out there to support us and the war fighters. Would I compare myself to? I've never said I'm a badass. Have you ever heard the term "the tip of the spear" in relation to the military?
Yeah.
So at the tip of the spear are those who are exactly what it is. Those are the ones who are doing those. They're the ones who've got all the hard missions. They're the ones who are maybe doing that secret, covert, black ops shit behind the lines. So at the very tip of the spear, that's where Delta Force sits, in my opinion. If anybody wants to argue with me about it, you better have some good fucking arguments, because the Delta Force, those are the badass guys. And generally speaking, you're never going to meet a Delta Force person. Or you might have met
Chuck Norris.
You might have met
Delta Force.
No, he wasn't. He was in the Air Force.
He was in the Air Force. Yeah.
And
He was
You've
a
never
SB.
seen the movie Delta Force with him?
Yeah, but he wasn't in Delta Force. I should have called it Delta Force. That's an actor. He's an actor. But anyway, at the tip of the spear, okay, imagine, if you will, my listeners, the tip of the
Chuck
spear.
Norris tip of the spear.
No, tip of the spear, just the tip, is Delta Force.
Just the tip.
Just the tip.
So
And
you think
as
they're
you go
better
down-
than the SEALs?
As you go down from the tip of the spear.
So you got
Of course it's
you're
up.
going down the tip. You got the shaft now. So you're giving
No,
some
no, no,
shaft.
no, no, no. No, we're still on the spear, man. Just stay fucking with me, man.
Okay.
Tip of the spear. Delta Force.
Just the tip. You touch the tips.
Slightly down, just as you go down that spearhead. Next, I would say, would be the SEALs and the Army Special Forces. Debatable on who would be ahead of the other, because their missions are a little bit different from each other. You know, they say that.
What about
Anyway,
Air Force combat?
No, nope.
I think the
mission
combat
is-
controllers are usually attached to a SEAL or to a Special Forces unit now, I think.
Right, but they're usually they're coordinating the insertions and, yes, going along with them. The reason why I say I'm not sure, I think that you would say, I don't think that you could say that they are one above the other on SEALs and Special Forces, because their job's a little bit different depending on because Special Forces they're kind of like they do missions to take out targets, but they're also very big on training clandestine forces. That's kind of their mission, one of their missions. So SEALs aren't like that. SEALs just go in and just kill shit.
So all those SEAL movies I've seen that they do all this covert crap with night vision and stealth, that's bullshit.
Is that what I just said? What did I just say? I said they just
I'm
go in
just
and kill shit.
confirming.
That is exactly what I just said.
Confirming what you're saying.
No, you said
Right?
that you just watched a movie and you said that's bullshit. I'm like, no.
No, I said all those movies I've seen. Right? So
How would I know what movies you've seen?
I don't know.
You don't know? All right, then shut the fuck up. As you go down the spear, yeah, combat controllers, they fit in there somewhere. Again, usually is my understanding, and I can't say this for confirmation, but usually, like Isaac said, they are attached usually to a team. It's not like I don't think the combat controllers usually get dropped in by themselves. I think they're coordinating shit and they get attached with them. Can't 100% say sure, because I'm not a combat controller and I wasn't in the Air Force. And then as you go down, next I would say are the Bat Boys. This is the Ranger Battalion. Okay, door kickers, lightning troops, and a lot of times their missions are coordinated at the same time as the 82nd. They just hit more smaller or key targets. Maybe they'll do an airfield and we'll land outside of a city or something. So either they jump at the same time, around the same time, or they might insert before us. Because I guess you could say they're like shock troops.
So
And
like
then
you
below
guys, well, hold on. With your airborne, then you guys are going in mass, right? So you're talking
Yes.
how many people?
Let's see. So if you said one per, if you do a mass tac, I think that if somebody would have to correct me, but a C-140, C-141.
Yeah,
I don't even know if
141.
they use these. I think they use the bigger one now, the C-17. I'm not sure how many people hold that, but it's usually 13. Most of the time, mass tacs that I did were 13 or more ships came in. So you could land several brigades at a very short period of time. So brigades of infantry coming in. So when you see an actual mass attack, you'll see, I mean, it blots out the sky if it was during the day. Obviously, you can't tell that at night, but there's nothing but parachutes.
Right.
Back in the day, we emptied the whole ship on one pass. For a while there, they were doing it, we're only going to empty so many per door. And they actually had more, I think we had more injuries then. But if you dump the entire ship out, then there was a lot fewer injuries. But yeah, you can dump like an entire brigade in a very short period of time. There's not that many Rangers in the battalion. That's the Ranger battalions. There's one brigade with, I think, 3 battalions. So yeah, they're usually hitting a smaller target or, key targets, maybe right before the 82nd, maybe at the same time as the 82nd. Their mission is just different. And they usually don't stay. They usually hit, back in the day anyway, they would hit a target and they'd be out of there. The 82nd will hit the target, stay and occupy. Different missions. So that's why I always say that battalions there, right under them would be the regular, like the 82nd Airborne Division, and then below them would probably be all the other infantry divisions. And it's all about deployability, how fast they can get there, really, is what it's about. So there you have it. Now, as we go down that spearhead.
So we're just past that tip now. We're on to the shaft.
There's no Ronz. As I go down the shaft itself, I keep going down. So there's no longer, you're not on the tip of the spear, man. Sorry.
Oh, yes, we are. You just don't know about it.
Okay, brings me to my questions. Now, Isaac, you and I talked about this a little bit. Because of the fact that clearly the Ronz was doing some serious hardcore Black Ops shit, I've got some ideas of what he might have been possibly doing. But because you were in the Air Force, I'm going to ask your opinion on it. Here's what I've determined that the Ronz might have been doing. Okay.
And this is all speculative, by the way.
So in other words, he's neither going to confirm nor deny what I bring up. But I want Isaac's opinion, and maybe you've got some opinions also. Is it possible that the Ronz was fueling the stealth bomber?
It's possible.
I can neither confirm or deny that, and I have that on good authority. Because at Mildenhall, the SR-71 and the U-2 Dragon Lady were there. So I can neither confirm or deny that.
Let me ask you this question. How were you able to fuel the stealth bomber if you can't see it?
I can neither confirm or deny that.
Did you have like special glasses to see it in order to fuel it?
You have to wear those old 3D glasses.
No, have you ever seen the Dragon Lady or the U-2, the SR-71 up close?
I don't know what the Dragon Lady. What is the Dragon Lady?
The U-2, the spy plane.
Oh, the spy. Oh, you mean? Oh, yeah.
You ever see that
They
up
have
close?
it at. What's the one?
They have the SR-71 at Airway.
At the Air Zoo Museum.
Yeah, I thought it was the F-4 Phantom that was at the Air Museum.
They have an F-4 too.
Phantom is not stealth at all.
That's a fighter.
Oh.
Yeah.
So the U-2 is the one that got shot down over Korea back in the 50s or 60s.
Yeah, the Cold War.
It goes up like 60,000
I thought that was a spy plane that they had at the Air Museum.
That's the SR-71.
Oh, that's what that was?
That's the black one.
All right, okay. Yeah, that's pretty sweet.
If you're going to bust my ass,
clearly you weren't fueling that because you weren't in the military.
I can neither confirm or deny that.
All right, so then here let me bring my next one that we asked for possibly. So were you then also probably fueling Air Force One?
I can definitely say no, I wasn't.
Oh.
Because that's at Andrews, right? Everybody knows where that's at, so that's not classified information of any sort. But
I don't know where that's at. Isn't there more than one?
Yeah, sure. Well, we'll go with that. But the thing is, no, I've never been around Air Force One.
I actually had to secure it in California when Clinton came down there once, and again after 9/11 in Alaska when Bush came up there for a speech. We had to.
Security was fucking tight.
Oh, stupid idiots,
it was crazy.
Guns.
Yeah, it was crazy. FBI come in with snipers and secured the whole town, and yeah, it was.
Nice. I think it's important to note that President Clinton was president when I was in, and he did not have sexual relations with that woman. He did not. All right, so basically we don't know if he fueled the stealth bomber. It's a definite no on Air Force One. Here's what I think is the most likely scenario. Are you ready?
All right.
Because Ronz insists that he had like, what was your security clearance, Ronz?
Secret.
Okay, you know that's like the lowest one, right?
Sure.
It is. Isaac, is it not the lowest for the Army? That's the lowest one, other than none. Secret is the lowest security.
Yeah,
clearance.
other than none. Yes.
Yeah, I had that as an 18-year-old private E2.
Oh, fantastic.
So when you talk about they like I had a secret clearance, I'm like, yeah, so did I. I think I actually still have one. They made me renew it when I got out. I've been out and they made me renew it a few years ago, and I asked them why. I'm like, why the fuck do I need to renew my security clearance? You're not gonna pull me back. Anyway, point is,
Well,
you know that's the lowest one. Here's what I think is the most likely scenario of what the Ronz was doing because he's so obsessed with telling me about his secret clearance. I believe that the Ronz has intimate knowledge of alien aircraft and alien technology.
No.
And
Now,
building
of
home.
course, alien
I
aircraft
can
is
neither
not gonna
confirm or
require
deny
fuel.
that one either.
Oh, Isaac, what say you about my theory?
I'm surprised he had a secret, to be honest. But hey.
Isaac weighs in with a punch. Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Constantly.
No, I don't miss being security checkpoint or nothing. No.
So enlighten me
I
then.
had
Enlighten me about
but I had friends who were Ls and SPs, right? So I
drink.
yeah, drink. However, there were, everybody did their job in the military, right? The one thing,
Go into that. Why you keep going back to that? Why you keep coming back to that?
because it's the truth.
Yeah. Who cares? I want to know. I'm just saying, I want to know what was so secret that you were doing. You've been out for years. There's nothing that you could tell us that is going to come back
Believe it or
on
not,
you.
you do sign the confidentiality clause when you leave
Believe
the
it
base.
believe it or not, once you join the military, for those of you who don't know this or understand that, you have given up your individual freedom and you are now a property of the U.S. government. Once you are done, you are no longer a property of the U.S. government. I am not. It's kind of one of those funny things where people want to talk shit and say, let's say that I wanted to wear my BDU top out and about. And if somebody who's in the military now came up to me and said, hey, you can't wear that according to, I can't even remember the regulation, AR-50-1, whatever it was, the uniform guide for the military. You know what I would say to them?
What would you say?
I'd say, hey, dumbass, I'm not subject to those rules anymore. I'm not impersonating anybody. I can wear whatever the fuck I want because I'm not subject to that rule anymore.
Unless.
No, there's no unless.
Yeah,
I'm
there
not
is.
subject to that
Unless
rule.
you're doing stolen valor. Right?
That's also not a rule, dude. That's not a rule on anything.
Yeah.
That's not a rule.
Well, the rule is as long as you're not impersonating a military person.
That's what I just said. And I wouldn't be in the first place because when I was in, they don't even wear the uniform that I wore. They haven't that BDU hasn't been around for how many years now? That's my point. I'm like, I'm not subject to that little uniform rule.
They don't wear a pink beret or anything like that anymore.
I never wore a pink beret. Hey, do me a favor though. I cut you off last time and I really wanted to hear this story. Speaking of BDUs, can you finish your camo net story? Because you didn't really get to tell it. We were making fun of you. Go ahead. I want to hear this camo net. No, I want, please just tell us the camo net story. To give you a little background, Isaac, we were talking about awards and how it's not important to get awards for doing your job, et cetera, et cetera. And Ron started talking about this camo net story, and I cut him off, and I really want to hear the camo net story. Can you please tell it?
All it was about recognition, right? And there are certain things you do in the military that, as you stay in longer, the more it's more about recognition and awards. And I wasn't about that. It was about just, I signed my name on the dotted line, and it was about fair use. We were talking about certain people that we looked up to in the military. that would
Oh,
talk
holy
to
fuck.
you.
Tell your camo net story.
I'm getting to that, you dumbass. I see now. I am not like that. You are just bringing out the mean part of me. But there were
Don't
certain
get
leaders
mean.
that
Get
I
mean.
looked up to, right? And they would talk to you, not down to you. And those are the guys that you would follow into hell and back. I'm pretty sure, Isaac, you've had guys like that too. You got the guys that, who would come in, wear their rank on their sleeve and their mouth and tell you what to do. And then you got the guys who wear their rank on their sleeve, but talk to you. So yeah. you. And for those who don't know, the B-Man just put a big heart up. Well, I was just, I think, an A1C at the time.
Which is what?
Airman first class.
Oh, okay.
Right. And we were out there, me and this guy, Patrick Murphy, busting our ass, folding camouflage.
These were the Murphy boys.
Yeah, one of the Murphy boys. And we didn't think anything of it. Well, we got back to our duty section, our squadron. And someone got recognized for something. And it was petty, I think. Right? It was just one of those things like, you did a good job. And I got turned around, and one of the sergeants who to this day I highly respected pulled us aside and said, what happened with them was, they did a good job, but you should have been recognized for, folding the camouflage nets, busting your ass out there and repacking them, right? Because with any war game, if you've done NATO games or PACAF games or whatever it is, someone's got to break everything down, set everything up, and then break everything down again, or whatever, however it goes, right? And that can be tough at times. All right, yeah, take a drink every time I say what or all right.
It's just right.
However, it was one of those things that, to me, and I won't mention this on air, but I'll mention it off air, that I didn't want recognition. I didn't want the awards or the accolades that went with wearing the uniform. I signed up for completely because it was the right thing to do, in my opinion.
Okay. Right? Why on earth should you get an award for folding a camo net?
It was a letter of what was it?
Again, that's a normal
It was
task.
a letter of recognition.
Why
it
would
was
that?
a good boy
why
thing.
would that deserve a letter of recognition? That's what I'm lost on. And you said something about buttons, about how it was common to use your buttons.
My buttons.
So here's what I thought was going to happen. Here's why I thought you were going to get an award. I thought that they were so proud of you for not losing any buttons when you folded up a camo net that you got an award. Now, you were in what years again? What year were you in?
85 to 92, 93, I think.
Okay, did your uniform change during that time frame?
Yes, it did.
You guys had different uniforms during that period?
Yes, we did.
So for part of that time, you wore what, and then you wore what?
They were called, I'm going to date myself as far as the military, but when you go in, you got the green, all OD green uniform. You were called a pickle, right? And then you got your name tag. You were called a can pickle. And during the time I was in, we switched over to BDUs, battle dress uniforms.
Okay, so when you folded the camouflage net, were you wearing BDUs or the other one?
I was wearing the OD green ones, the old 70s, early 80s ones.
Were you wearing the ones that were the fatigues or the ones that were like the canvas material?
I don't understand your question.
There's two OD green uniforms. One was the one that was just like the BDUs of that same material with the slanted pockets on it.
No.
The infantry wore.
Look up
or you're talking about
uniform.
Yeah, the ones you're talking about. I know which ones you're talking about. So my question is, if you were folding that, was there a lot of external buttons on that uniform?
Yeah.
And so you guys were such, what's the word? Fucktards that you commonly got your buttons caught on the camo net and popped them off?
Yeah, we did.
They like breakaway buttons?
You know why we did that?
Who sewed that shit on that a button pops off because it comes in contact with a camo net?
You know what we were thinking? We're thinking, how can we be a badass like the infantry guys? Hey, let's just pop some buttons
You just don't lose a button. If you don't lose a button, it makes you equivalent.
Isaac, it's like this every week. If you listen to the podcast, the B-Man and I go off on each other.
I'm just trying to understand the button thing because I don't understand. Why is it that you guys so easily got caught
Have
in
you
the
ever
camouflage net
camouflage
to the
netting?
point that you would pop your butt? You would have to, because I'm imagining the stitching on my BDUs. And one, there's no external buttons
You didn't
except
use
for on the sleeves. I'm just talking about
but
for
you
my
use a different type of
the
uniform.
buttons were so well sewn on that they were not going to pop off. So apparently the ones that were made before me, the green ones that you wore, the buttons were very lightly sewn on with just like one single thread. And you were wrestling with this camouflage net so vigorously that it would pop your buttons off. And it was a common
You got
thing.
me. You got me. How the hell? You know what? You should have been a psychologist. You got me. There we go.
What you're not taking into consideration here is the heavy dutiness of the camo netting. I mean, that stuff was pretty
No,
tough.
that doesn't matter, Isaac, to him. It doesn't. Right? It's just that he got defeated by a camouflage
You were
netting.
defeated. You got taken down by a camo net.
Yeah. And you know what? And for Isaac, who was MP, SP, LE, security forces, they were the only ones to actually get the BDUs early to wear them. Everybody else had to wear until the big switchover had to wear their uniform, the green ones. So and if you got assigned to guard, right, from our section, then you were issued BDUs. Oh, bite me.
Oh, I'm looking at a picture of the old OD green U.S. Air Force uniforms and
Okay.
the external buttons and the stitching. It looks pretty similar to the BDU buttons. So I'm just trying to understand why you were so easily wrapped up in a camo net that it would pop your buttons off. Did you not notice that it was attached to the button when you started yanking out? You're like, what the fuck? I'm stuck on this net. Well, let me just yank it a little bit harder. I mean, I could just lift it up a little bit. But let me yank. I'll just keep yanking. Yank until the button flies off.
I like how you know how to yank something. I mean, that's half
Oh, I
the
know how
infantry
to
of
yank.
masturbating right there.
I'm definitely a yanker. Here's really
So-
interesting. Well, if you guys want to, you can go on eBay. I don't know why you would do this, but you could go on eBay and buy a U.S. Air Force OD green uniform shirt with patches. Why? Why would you fucking do that? Somebody's selling it for $39 or best offer plus shipping. Why?
I see that.
Why? Why would you? Who's going to buy that? Who would buy that?
I think if anything, someone would buy it for the patches.
Well, I mean, you could just buy the patches.
If you know where to look, there are some patches that aren't
It's
out
the internet.
anymore.
You look on the internet.
There are some
Okay.
patches that aren't
There's
even
this thing-
out.
There's this thing that Al Gore invented called the internet.
I have
You can connect to it in your home if you have Wi-Fi.
Wi-Fi. Yeah, Wi-Fi. Oh, I don't have it right here in my desk.
There's a couple things that I have to point out.
I can't believe we had an Al Gore reference.
Yeah, I'm pretty good. All right.
Here we go. Here's an old Tactical Fighter Squadron patch with the 494th from Lakenheath. They don't
And
make
did you wear
patch
that
anymore.
on your uniform?
No.
Okay.
Only pilots did. And if you're the
So
crew
you
chief-
weren't even allowed to.
come on,
So
let's go.
that wasn't your patch?
No,
What was
Actually,
your patch? So why do you have
wow.
it if it wasn't your patch?
I have one. I
Did
was
a
on
pilot
base.
did a pilot take pity to you one day and just give it to you and he's like, here, son.
No.
I know you popped your button off the other day.
I was gonna
I
say,
have
once you get
this.
5 buttons popped off, you get a patch.
I definitely. This is a rare patch.
Oh.
That's from
Uh,
Lakenheath.
Just so you know, the listeners can't see that patch, but that's
I'm
probably
not
secret
showing-
also. That's secret also. And did you wear that on your uniform?
I do believe I did.
Okay, which brings me to another point about the Air Force. I don't know what they do now.
And this is.
This
I'll send
again
this to
shows that
too.
you would not be doing combat operations because your patches are so colorful that you are in your day-to-day uniform.
And this is another patch. This was. I only got 2 of these. All right.
That one looks like a Christmas wreath.
It's
the Christmas wreath.
the Netherlands. That's the Dutch crown, the royal crown on the patch.
Again,
Of a different
colorful.
country.
Probably not going to do combat operations in the field. Do you know
Because-
why? That was one of the great mistakes that the early military was making, obviously, in combat operations, is they left their patches with their color on them. Early operations, you can see that like pictures from the guys in World War II. They're wearing the colorful patches, and then you can see early days in Vietnam, they were still doing that, and obviously the enemy forces picked up on that you could see color on our uniforms.
I mean, didn't the officers have a big white stripe across the back of their helmet?
Oh, World War II?
Yeah.
I think they did up into Vietnam also, yep.
I
Yeah, and
never
they
knew that.
painted, the patches were painted on the helmets and big vivid colors. The enemy's obviously smart and picks up on that. Last thing you want to have is color on your uniform when it's supposed to be blending into the natural environment. Probably not a great idea. But I see, does the Air Force still wear colored patches on their day-to-day uniforms? I don't think they do they?
Yeah.
No, they're subdued now.
Yeah.
Amazing how long something like that takes. All right.
Well, look at the Air Force cops, man. We had that big yellow emblem on the front of that beret, man. It stuck out. You can see that thing a mile away.
You guys wouldn't have worn that into combat operations, though, right? Wouldn't you have worn like a regular hat?
It depends. Like some places in Kuwait, we wore them, but in Saudi Arabia, we had just regular BDU hats. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's not like we were going when we did operations that they said, "Hey, pack your beret along." What? Like, we're not gonna pack our beret along.
So how many pink berets did you have?
I've never had a pink beret.
Oh, you didn't earn that. Okay.
I don't even have a response to that. I'm just going to tell the listening audience, try not to kill the Ronz. You can't really reach through the computer. I would like to mention a couple things though, because the Ronz is obviously the favorite of all of our fans,
Thank you.
and which is understandable. He's not that obnoxious. I am, and I hate to give this much press to a listener, but we did have a comment on one of the most recent podcasts. And I'd like to read it for the audience. And this listener, I guess you get to hear us read this comment.
This is a great comment, by the way. I really do enjoy this. So take it away, B-Man.
All right, from a listener. I apologize in advance for this comment. That's always a good start.
That's a good way to start.
Yeah, it may be completely incoherent and unintelligible. I listened to this episode with my good friend, Anita, Miss Dick, Anita Dick, and I decided that we would play a little drinking game. Every time the Ron said, right, we would take a shot of tequila. Every time he said, you really do, it really does, I really do, or anything of that ilk, we would do an Irish car bomb. Needless to say, we are plenty fucked up. Side note, Anita may sue the Slaptail Squad for a replacement liver. Be on the lookout for a dick subpoena. So your drinking game that I mentioned on many episodes ago seems to be actually effective.
And a shout out to
Maybe
Seymour
this is-
Butts.
Maybe this is going to become a thing, internationally throughout the world, that people will use our podcast as a drinking game. I don't think they'll be disappointed because I think people will get seriously fucked up.
Right?
I thought that was so cool when you sent that to me because I was out and about. And when I read it, once again, I was laughing my ass off because someone actually listened to the podcast.
Well, of course
Oh,
people
great.
listen to the podcast. You think people don't listen? You think I do this? Well, I do this for myself, obviously. But yes, we have listeners. Why wouldn't we have listeners?
You recruited me for a podcast that no one listens to?
Right.
No,
exactly.
we've got more listeners than you think. We do.
Yeah, we got
It's
more than 5.
fantastic.
We got more than 5, I'm sure. Just some observations from life as we get down to the wire where we're going to wrap this up a little bit. Here's some observations by me, by the way. Last night I'm sleeping, and do you guys ever have this? Last night, out of nowhere, the swan adjusts her pillow violently, laterally, and it freaking sticks me right in my throat.
You
And I
sure she
violently
just
threw it
wants to
back
tell you
at
to
her.
shut the fuck up at night?
Well, the problem is that I sleep on my back because I have to wear a CPAP machine. And that thing just violently shot across. I'm like, what was the purpose of that? I understand that you do shit in your sleep, but at what point in time does the pillow need to all of a sudden move laterally violently and chop me in the throat like it's going to fucking kill me?
COVID response?
Maybe your CPAP machine was buzzing.
No, she actually didn't know she did it because I violently shoved it back at her. And she didn't mention it this morning, so clearly she doesn't remember.
So I want to ask Isaac this real quick.
Does this have to do with my pillow question?
It doesn't.
I
So
have
when you
pillows.
got out, what hobbies did you do when you got out? What hobbies did you start that you continued from the your military thing?
I know exactly where you're going to lead into with it because you're so fucking predictable, but go ahead. You're so fucking predictable.
I know. Am I not?
You are.
I don't really have any hobbies that I picked up in the military that I continued.
Now, did you continue
about
with
masturbation?
your career?
That was before I went in.
Oh, okay.
So did you continue with your career to become law enforcement?
No, not at all. I was so sick of it that I didn't want to do that anymore.
So what did you wind up doing?
Ended up working in a factory and going to school, and now I work at the VA hospital. So
Awesome. That's
Yep.
fantastic.
Helping veterans. Thank you, Isaac, for
Trying.
He tries because it's a fucking broken system. All right. Well, there are good people working within that system. Not a whole hell of a lot of them, but there are good people working within that system that clearly doesn't give two shits of a fuck about veterans, in my opinion. But go ahead, continue to ask him about his hobbies, Ronz.
No, I was just going to go
like
with
you're
that.
interested for a personal reason. Go ahead.
Do you work as a field person at?
No, actually, I did. I took the first
He has
available job I
PTSD
could
from that,
get.
Isaac, and he tried to get. That's why he doesn't work in that field now.
No.
All those secret black ops missions he did.
The jobs around here were mainly based out of Battle Creek. They did have some here and there, but the company was based in Battle Creek. And my wife was going to college in this area, so to travel back and forth. We were just first started out. We were still living with my parents. I needed to find a job quick, so I took the first job I could get, and that was it.
Why didn't you pursue your field and just work at like Speedway or Shell or something like that?
I just told you why. If you would listen.
There's gas stations everywhere. There are gas stations literally everywhere. You couldn't find a job in your field?
No, not with. I was cryogenics as well. I worked with liquid oxygen and liquid nitrogen.
Uh-huh.
And to work with some of the bigger companies, you know, that were located outside of Kalamazoo, if I remember correctly. I didn't have the time.
I figured it out. Now I figured it out from what you just said. Holy shit. Now I figured out why you have the security clearance.
What was that?
You were in charge of maintaining the frozen head of Walt Disney.
You figured it out. Damn it.
Now I know. Holy shit.
I
didn't even think he had anything to do with the military. But hey, that whole skull and bones.
Now you know why I was doing martial arts in the military.
Oh, here we go. Here we go, listening
guard that head.
Here we go. This is what I said. This was the slow burn up to this point, so that the Ronz could mention what?
That I am a martial artist.
For
Are
fuck's
you?
sake.
No.
That's cool. What do you do?
Wow, you stumped him with that.
I'm a
question.
martial arts
Does
practitioner.
arts.
I'm a martial arts practitioner. I actually have a red belt in Taekwondo, a black belt in Okinawan karate, and a black belt in Okinawan weapons, Kabuto.
Oh, so you have a red belt in Taekwondo, but you don't know how to say Taekwondo.
It's however you want to say it. However you want to say it.
Well, I mean, I maybe the Koreans might disagree. You should say it however you want to say it. I don't know. I could be wrong. Maybe it's not pronounced that way. I don't know. I don't know.
Isaac, you were over there. I'm pretty sure that was where. How would you say it? You were over in Korea.
I have no idea. I will say though that those guys, Like their training is so crazy that I wouldn't want to mess with them. Even the regular Army are all like black belts and stuff. I saw them do some crazy stuff, man. You'd stand there and they'd kick cans off the top of your head and stuff. And it was crazy.
What do they call the other ones? The rock warrior, the rock soldier?
The Rocks, yeah.
Yeah, the rocks, yeah.
But
Yeah,
they
I've heard
didn't have the
some-
privilege of guarding Walt Disney's head.
Clearly not. Clearly not. Or fueling stealth bomber or
I can neither
Or
confirm or deny
learning
that.
about alien aircraft fuel from aliens.
That was the cryogenic part right there.
The
Well, here's how
cryogenic-
before we head out today, I do want to plug a couple companies. Once again, let me plug the Sunga Life people and thank them once again for such a high quality product. This is a company that's founded by a Navy SEAL. And I'm wearing some of their silkies right now. They got
Say the
pink
company
flamingos.
again?
They got pink flamingos on them. And I am going to do some pictures of my thighs in some silkies so that Ronz can put them on the website. And the Slaptail Squad members can do the same thing, and they can take pictures of their thighs, and we can have them on there. That would
So-
include you, Ron. You got to do it too.
Awesome. What's the company's name again?
It's Sunga Life, and you can find them at sunga.life on Instagram or hashtag Sunga Life. SUNGALIFE. Bikinis, swimwear, silkies for men, shorts for men. And by God, I'm bringing the silkies back because the sky's out and my thighs are out. No longer will I be hindered by long shorts covering my beautiful thighs. Thank you very much.
All right.
And Ron, did you have anything you wanted to talk about? Anything you wanted to plug?
Actually, I did. I was
So
going
go
to go
ahead.
to my
Then go ahead and
first.
do it. No, go ahead and do it then if you guys have something you want to talk about.
No, I was going to go to my first protest or peaceful protest about some stuff that was happening in the area. I just wanted to see what the stuff was all about.
So wait, you
But
wanted to go to a protest to see what it was about.
It was a counter protest.
Didn't you know what it's about before you go?
I did, but I wanted to be an active participant in it just to see and get the feel for it.
Why didn't you?
Because someone scheduled this damn podcast at 1:00,
You could have said, "Hey, I have plans. Can we schedule it at a different time?"
but we wouldn't have gotten to be with Isaac today. So
How do you know that?
I don't know that.
Isaac was waiting for us to tell him what time.
Yep.
Just
Okay, we'll
assume.
throw that at me. Isaac, as you get used to us, we're going to throw shit back at you. So, get used to it.
I can't wait.
So let me ask this then. You've been out for quite some time, like I have, and the Beeb Man has. Do you miss certain aspects of the military?
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
What
I
do you
wish I
miss?
wouldn't have gotten out. Oh, the usual stuff, the camaraderie, hanging out with the guys. It's just weird, man. Like guard mount, small things like that you wouldn't think about while you're in, but was a big part of everyday life of being in the military.
I think the first time I heard it was not my job, I wanted to punch someone because that's a phrase you never said in the military.
Right.
And
Because
it
everything's
doesn't
your
matter
job.
what branch you were in. If an Army guy came up to me or a Marine or a Navy and they said, "Hey, we need you to do this," I would, you would have to respond, "I'm with this
After
guy."
he sucks their dick because they're better than him. He's like,
No, you would say, you would respond respectfully that you were with this. And this actually happened. I was having,
and you'd say, do you need me to tickle your balls also before I do this?
I was actually at a hangar and they were breaking stuff down and I was on a call and they said, "Hey, can you move this real quick?" And I politely responded, "Yes, I can, but I have to get back to my section real quick." And they kind of looked at me like, "Oh, you're not with this group." "No, but I'll help you as much as I can, and then I'll get back to my group. I've got a little bit of time to do that with." So, you never disrespected the guy that was asking for help. And if you couldn't do it, you had a valid reason, not this bullshit, "It's not my job" shit. That just threw me. And in honor of the Beeb Man, I was out at South Haven last week,
Oh, this would be
and
good.
I heard someone say, I'm not going to wear my mask. I think it's retarded. I wanted to walk up behind the person because I was actually behind the person. They were going in the same direction. And I wanted to punch them in the head. I really did. My wife saw my fist ball up and I'm like, no, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. I wanted to take their phone, throw it in the water, whoever they were talking to. I'm like, well, if you don't think a mask is worth it, then I guess you talking on your phone's not worth it either. And I just let it go. I had to let it go. Because
I think what would be better is if you actually just told me that you did that, because then I would have been happier.
Yeah, and I wouldn't have been able to do the podcast. I would have been in jail.
Nah.
Oh, we'd have bailed you out. I'd
definitely bail you out for something like that. All right, Ronz, would you like to talk about coffee before we end the podcast? So we shamelessly promote things.
Coffee. I think that's lifer's juice, as we so succinctly put it in the military. I've said this before. If you want to cripple a military, don't come at us with guns, ammo, the latest tech stuff. That's not going to work. We've got counter surveillance and all that. You want to stop
remove
the
our
military,
buttons
and buttons, and yeah. If you want to stop the military, take away 2 items, and it'll stop them cold. And that's
right
nicotine and caffeine. Right? There's another drink there. If you take away those 2 things, you can stop a military cold almost. Because you got those guys always drinking coffee 24/7. That pot's always full. And if it's empty, you better have your ass brewing another pot real quick. And if they're not out there, right? And I've had cop friends before, if they're not near their, they've always got their radio on, but they're somewhere not near their car, smoking a cigarette, drinking a coffee somewhere.
And if you make a pot of coffee and you don't burn your finger, in the Air Force you get an award.
Actually, you get a Purple Heart if you do burn your finger. So,
ooh, might be incentive to burn your finger.
There you go.
All right, and if you people are interested in ordering some coffee from a veteran-owned business, you can take a look at Scars and Stripes Coffee. That's Scars and Stripes Coffee. And the link for our veteran friend of the show, for Carrie, is what, Ronz? Carrie Scars and Stripes, which you can find at what exactly?
Facebook. I'm typing it up now. I don't have it memorized.
Every fucking one. I'm like, geez, Ron, do you like coffee? And that's your cue as the person who looks all this shit up. But
oh, yeah. Well, you can go to scarsandstripescoffee.com, or you can go on our Facebook page and you'll find a link to Carrie's Brew for Scars and Stripes. And you can order from her. Also, a big shout out to Skylar, who does some video editing, right? It's got your arm sleeve in there, by the way. So if you know of anybody that's looking for video work, he's the guy.
Good point. Anybody looking for video work, Skylar Beavers at Skylar Films Things, or you can just type in Skylar Beavers and you should be able to find him and get him to do some editing for you, as he was trained at the Georgia Film Academy in Georgia. All right, well, that's it for us.
I got one more question.
What? What is it? Fucking what is it?
Isaac, if you can have anybody on the podcast, who would you like to have on?
Oh, wow. Anybody?
Anybody.
Scarlett Johansson.
Scarlett Johansson. All right, I'll put the word out. We'll see if we can get her on.
Sounds good.
I do that. Let's put her on.
All right, and a big shout out to Squeegee Snot. Hopefully we'll hear from them soon if they want to come on and we can interview them or talk to them about their past projects in music or whatever. So big shout out to them too.
Who's that? I don't know who that is. Who is that?
Squeegee Snot. It's an old.
Yeah, I heard that first part, but who is it? I don't know who they are. Who is? It's a punk band. Okay, sounds great. And you can always
one of their songs that I really love was "Ain't Pride You Gotta Swallow, Babe."
Okay. So, all right. Sounds good.
So.
And you can always contact us at slaptailsquad@gmail.com, and you can check out our website that the Ron sort of maintains at slaptailnation.com. That's slaptailnation.com.
Also, like us on Facebook. I'm on Facebook.
Like us on Facebook?
Yeah, kind of.
Young kids out there, like us on Facebook. I would like to thank Isaac. I'd like to thank Isaac for being on our episode today. Thank you for contributing.
Hey, no problem. I appreciate it. It was fun.
All right, and anybody out there who's at the tip of the spear and who wants to be on the podcast, please let us know. Also, like I said, though, your accomplishments and your performance in the military will pale in comparison once you've heard about what the Ronz did. And I really hope that I really hope that a lot of people watched videos about fueling in the military in order to feel a little bit more inadequate in their day-to-day life and to see what a true badass is like. All right.
The B-Man has that going on.
It, man. If
he doesn't hit me somehow,
that's it for me, the B-Man. Oh, he's still talking. That's it for me, the B-Man. Adios, mooch fuckos.
Hey, from the Ronz. Isaac, you got the last word.
Later.